Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining today. We continue our enablement journey around the managed secure access. Today, we are focusing on the delivery part, which is primarily targeting the teams who build and run the service. Effectively, professional services, solution consultants, project managers, whether centrally or located in countries, technical implementation owners or TIOs, service delivery managers, security managers, and last but not least, the security advisors who are known internally as TDMs. If you are not part of those teams, you are still more than welcome to attend. The delivery track builds on top of the pre-sales track. If you have not attended it last week, either watch the recording, which is now published, or attend the rerun of the sessions, which will start next Monday. We will stay together for the coming 2 hours, and we will get a couple of short breaks to stretch out. This is a working session. If you need to check the links that will be pasted during the training, you need to be connected to the VPN, either the Orange Cyber Defense VPN or the Orange Business VPN. Few housekeeping and few reminders. Please put your mics on mute to control the background noise. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat and one of us will pick it up. And at the end of the session, you will get an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask any further questions. And we will kindly ask you to provide your feedback at the end. It takes less than 2 minutes, but it helps us to continuously deliver content which is useful for you. So Rob will paste in the chat the details around the training and the recording page at the end. So our host today, Zoe Broster, Head of Innovation, Dan Gribble, Managed Secure Access Global Tech Lead and the Tech Lead for Netscope as well, and myself, John Atif, Product Manager for Managed Secure Access. As I mentioned, today delivery track is part of an enablement program, which contains other tracks as well. To allow the maximum number of people to attend, all the tracks will be rerun starting from next Monday. For more details around the enablement program, the recordings of the past sessions, and the invitations for the upcoming ones, please check the link that Rob just pasted in the chat. Our plan for today is to cover 5 main topics. We will give you an idea how we sell MSA to customers and what story do we tell. We will then see, once a customer signs, we are required to start the delivery phase. So we will see how to kick off a project, who to involve, and what information do you need to start with. We will explore the tasks that needs to be completed in order to onboard a new customer, including what tools to use and what documents needs to be created and provided to the customer. As you approach the completion of the customer onboarding, we will see how to hand over to the SOC and what tools needs to be updated. Finally, the learning journey continues. We will see what other things you need to start learning after this training. Being part of the teams who deliver the service back to customers, you need to know what story do customers hear from us during the selling process, because this is what they expect we will deliver as part of the service. What they see is what they get. This is how we maintain our credibility with customers. So this is why it is important that you know exactly what they saw before signing. We start first by making it clear to our sales and pre-sales teams that we are not here to sell our customers a piece of technology. It's not to explain to customers how the different solutions and the different technologies work, whether the different vendors that we work with, Zscaler, Palo, Netscope, Fortinet, and so forth. Of course, if they have such knowledge, that's a great asset. But our unique value is not in pushing products and features. Any small integrator that the customer is working with can equally do the same job and sometimes even better. What we are actually selling to customers are business outcomes. Our sales and pre-sales team's job is to understand what customers are trying to achieve as a business from a business point of view, and then show how SASE and SSE can be a strategic enabler to get them faster and more secure where they want to be. So for instance, if a company is doing multiple acquisitions every year, what they actually want when thinking of SASE and SSE is how to speed up the integration of a company post-acquisition without compromising security. For that, we have created a consultative selling approach, which puts the business aspects first. The approach is called the business objective approach. It's a set of workshops that we run with customers, and this is how we drive the conversation. So I'll give you a quick glimpse about it so that you know what customers do see. In this business objective approach, we start by understanding the customer business priorities and how they want to demonstrate return on investment and value realization to their business stakeholders when they tell them we are planning to acquire SASE or SSE. If we are talking with the customer IT or security teams, they may be focused on the technology part, the features, capabilities, the battle cards, tell me the differences between the vendors. However, this is not enough for a successful project. According to a study, 7
I think John just crashed.
Yes.
And let's give it a minute.
Yep. Do you hear me back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
I think we lost you for the last 2 minutes, John.
2 minutes.
I don't know how long
so
you... Yeah.
When was the last thing that you saw? What was the last thing?
It's still on people, technology, and process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I was
a percent, John.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. So basically, what I was saying that taking into consideration the technology aspects only does not constitute a successful project deployment. And basically, as I was saying, 70% of IT projects fails to deliver satisfactory results from an end user perspective. So it's the right mix between technology, people, and process.
Okay, that's not...
Yeah, lost again.
Yeah, it happened again. I'm pinging him. The good news is he only has a very small part of the presentation.
Yeah, and I hope you can hear me back. I
Yes.
switched to 4G.
Yeah, that's a good
Let's
one.
see if that's more stable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, as
you need to reshare now, and this time it completely dropped, John.
Yep. Thank you, Rob. Yeah. That's the demo effect. Yeah.
Well, don't blue screen,
Okay.
please. Thanks.
Do you see my screen now?
Yes, it's back up.
Yeah, but it's right at the end almost. It's like 4 slides or 4 clicks further on than where you started.
We are on the right part. Yeah. So don't worry. Yeah. So it's basically what I was saying. It's the right mix between technology, people, and process is what constitutes a successful project. And in today's threat landscape, there is no more a deploy and forget type of solutions. There has to be a process in place to ensure continuous security posture management, and a governance framework that would allow customers to ensure that new risks are regularly assessed and managed. From the engagements we had with customers, we have determined there are 15 business objectives which organizations are trying to achieve in their adoption of SSE and SASE. Most organizations would prioritize 2 to 5 of those business objectives, which are mostly linked with what they want to achieve as a business. It's worth mentioning that those 15 business objectives are not put in stone. As we engage with customers, we listen to their needs, we evolve them by merging, retiring, or adding new business objectives. As the trusted advisors for our customers, we can now draw a roadmap matching each organization's unique business priorities and covering the things that is important for them on the short, medium, and long term. So in this example, after discussing with the customer and undergoing their unique business priorities, it was clear that they need to start by protecting their internet access first. Then they move towards zero trust. Visibility was important for them. So this was step number 3 in the roadmap. And then finally securing their finding ways to accelerate mergers and acquisitions. For each of those business objectives or roadmap items, we do 2 things with the customer. We get inputs from the customer and we provide them with the key success factors for an effective deployment. First thing, we capture the customer voice. We ask the customer what are they trying to achieve and why it is important for their business. If the customer have not thought of this business dimension before, and we see this a lot, especially when talking with the technical teams, we leverage on the discussions we had with other customers to provide an example of what other organizations were trying to achieve around this business objective. Of course, if the customer knows their pain points and what their business really wants to achieve, then we capture them here. In this example, to move towards zero trust, one client was concerned about their attack surface, especially with the number of discovered vulnerabilities in the legacy VPN solutions. And they wanted to move towards zero trust to better manage their attack surface, limit lateral movement in case of a breach, and continuous validation of access rights. The second part is to provide guidance on the key success factors. So look at this as a recipe for success for deploying zero trust. And we take it from the 3 angles, the technology, people, and process. And so in order to move towards zero trust in this example, there are 8 points that we tell customers. These are the points that you need to take into account for a successful deployment. Here, 4 related to technology, marked in orange, 2 related to people, and 2 for process. Those points are required for a successful deployment. For those customers who need guidance on which vendor would best fit the business objectives roadmap that we have built with them, we evaluate the vendor against the elements which are important to integrate within the customer environment, and we give them our recommendation for the top 2 vendors that would best fit their environment. For further details, if you have attended the pre-sales track, we have covered this in full detail, so I will not go in further details now. As this is a 3 years roadmap that we have discussed with the customer during the business objective workshops at the pre-sales phase, the customer is expecting to get what they saw. So who is responsible to deliver the implementation of such roadmap items during the service delivery? The security advisor, who is also known internally as the technical delivery manager or TDM, are the ones who should drive such roadmap discussions in the multiple touch points that they have with the customer on a monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And remember, our role as delivery team is not only to manage the technology for the customer in terms of incidents, changes, releases, and so forth. Our primary role is to help customers maintain a secure posture over the lifetime of the service. Okay, now we understand that what are the customer expectation. Let's see how we help them transfer this promise that they saw written in documents and presentations into reality. So Dan, can you take us through the first part, how to kick off a project?
Of course, John. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, from wherever you are in the world today. So I'm Dan, I'm the MSA technical lead, and I am going to talk you through how to kick off your project. So once the customer has signed, we obviously need to make our onboarding team aware that we need to start the project. The first thing we need to do is start the customer onboarding process. To do this, we go to the customer onboarding page in SharePoint, which I will show you quickly now here, and you should be able to request a SOC onboarding service. So clicking here will open up an email, and then we just need to fill out an email template to tell the onboarders exactly who the customer is and what the service is. So as I said, we open up an email, and then we need to include the following information. So obviously the customer name, what service or services they have bought from Orange Cyber Defense, the level of service, the term, how long, the vendor or technology that the customer has chosen. If it's 8x5 or 24x7, functionalities within the vendor themselves. So things like the secure web gateway or private access. Sometimes there's multiple, sometimes there is only one. Number of users, monthly service contract value. If the project manager is local or global, the delivery team, because we do offer EU or global, the target go live date, and the attached statement of work, which should have come from the pre-sales team. This should be done by the local project manager. Oops, apologies. It could be a global project manager or account manager. Each country has a local process, so follow your local processes for that. Once you have sent the email off, you will see there'll be a Picard project created. So all the project plans are created in Picard. There is a new one coming very soon, which I'll give you a very sneak peek at on the next slide. But in here, all the tasks have a description. So what is expected in the task, configuration information, and links to any configuration that needs to be done. There's also a RACI model in there, so who is responsible for that task. And obviously all these tasks should be completed before handover to the operations. Okay, this Picard template should be the source of truth for all tasks. So this is where people can come in, check, make sure that the task is on track, the project's on track, sorry, which task is still outstanding, and so on. So this is the source of truth for all projects here. As I said I would give you a sneak peek of Surface Activation 2.0. So there is a new version coming along where we have links in chain. So at the minute, you just get a list of tasks. What will happen in the future is you will have a sort of a Gantt chart here with all the tasks that are linked together. So if a task needs to be done before another task, and also obviously more than one task can be done at a time, especially when there's 4 or 5 of you in the project. So it doesn't mean that we need to wait for one task before we start the next. So it's just going to be a lot easier to read and follow, especially for the project managers. Okay, so who should do what? So the roles and responsibility within a project. So obviously the project manager is overall accountable that the end-to-end checklist is complete in the designated time. So to ensure that the project goes live, to give updates if there's any delays, or any escalations needed, etc. Service delivery manager will take control of all the service or customer delivery orientated tasks. So things like the operational handbook, portal access, anything, customer delivery orientated. We then have the build side of things. So here it would either be professional services or technical implementation owners. This will depend on whether there is local PS resource. So by default, a technical implementation owner will do the build, which is a central build team, and they perform like a centralized solution build, so all customer builds are exactly the same. If there is local PS that have the skills and expertise, local PS will do the build itself. However, there would also be TIO involved in that to govern that process to make sure it's built to our SOC sort of standards, so it's easy for handover, and also will take part of the service activation tasks. Service activation can be done by, again, the technical implementation owners or a SOC onboarder. So there are SOC onboarders within each local SOC that can onboard different services into our service delivery platform, etc. We then also have our security advisor, TDM. So this is usually a level 2 or level 3 SOC engineer who has experience in the product that the customer has bought from us. And their role is to be brought in as early as possible to understand the customer environment, the challenges throughout the build, and then ensure that smooth transition to the run phase. And then we have the team leads and SOC managers who are accountable for the SOC onboarder and TDM activities. They also sign off the project checklist. Near the end, they just make sure that everything is ready to go into the run phase. So as I said before, each task has a RACI model inside. So it'll tell you who is responsible for that task, anyone accountable, etc. there. Okay, so if we go and have a quick look at one of these, we can see here we have our Orange Cyber Defense customer, MSA demo customer. Once that email has gone off, this is what is created by the onboarding team, and we can then see the list of tasks here below. So anytime we click into one of the tasks, you can see the description. So for this one, we have the request resources. So we have that SDM, professional services or TIO, SOC, TDM, team lead from delivery team, and then who is responsible for each one of those tasks. Brilliant. So as I said, we have our professional services or technical implementation owner. If it's PS, it's primarily local to the customer themselves, and they obviously work closely with the customer, ensuring that build is done to the highest standard that we can. And the technical implementation owner is there to govern that and do the service activation, so like a quality control tower. Fantastic. So from here on, I am going to go into Picard and go through these tasks. We're not going to concentrate on the slides. We'll come back to the slides near the end as a quick review of each one. So project documentation, the project kickoff. If we go back to our task list here.
Can you zoom in a bit, please, Dan?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
And then there is a question coming from two people saying, can we assign two members from the same role on Picard?
Not currently, but you can assign and then you can watch the issue. So the secondary can come and watch the issue, and then we'll still get all the updates on the issue. You have one designated assignee, which should be according to that RACI model. Okay, so prepare documentation. After the project's been created, we need to prepare all the documentation and spaces ready for the customer project to kick off. So we have a docs space for all customer information here. Okay, so within docs, we have our customer documentation home, and then each customer has their own space here. So everything regarding customer information will be recorded in this customer documentation space. Okay, so we create that, and then we then go through making sure that when we hand it over from our professional pre-sales to our professional services or TIO team, that we have all the operational environment documents, the statement of work, any deviations documented, and any other documents that is needed. Obviously, we've assigned all the roles. We do have slightly different way of working when we work with OB. So just be aware that if we're working with OB, that customer operational model and journey is slightly different. There's an OB service desk that will talk directly to the customer, and there'll be e-bonding on the back end to our ServiceNow instance. The governance actually sits with OB CSM rather than the OCD SDM, but the OCD service delivery manager will obviously govern the service from the OCD side and feed that into the Orange CSM. If there's multiple security services in scope, then there will be a security manager also positioned, which means that the TDM role will slightly change down the line, which the TDM or security advisor will be an internal role and feed that to the security manager. And there is also a platform called Evolution Platform. If it's OB, that is Evolution Platform first, so the build will be done on the Evolution Platform, so there'll be slightly different configurations needed for that. Okay. So as I said, operational environment, make sure that is completed, statement of work is completed, documented deviations, and then all resources have been assigned. The next task is the internal kickoff meeting. So this is probably one of the most important tasks that there are. This is where we get to know the team for one, and we do a full handover from our pre-sales architect. Okay, so as you can see here, we set up that meeting with the pre-sales. We have all of the team that we've assigned to the project, and this is where we basically discuss what happened during the pre-sales phase. So any challenges and risks with the scope of the project. So we go through the operational environment, statement of work, all them customer deviations that we've collected. So we identify them risks, discuss them, make sure everybody knows what has been sold to the customer, why the customer chose us and that specific service, all licensing information to be discussed there as well. So how many licenses do they have for what functionalities? Sometimes they may have one functionality with a lot more licenses than another functionality, especially things like private access side of things. Not usually every user needs access to that, so the licenses are different. So make sure we understand what licenses have been brought for each of the functionality. There's a walkthrough of the project plan for all the key milestones, the scope of the service. Here is a discussion to make sure that everyone agrees that that project plan is timely. So there's enough time to do each of the tasks and have a discussion to make sure that all them key milestones are set and what is expected from the team. You plan and prepare that customer kickoff meeting. So there is soon after this a kickoff with the customer where the whole team will again be visible there and ensure that everyone is on the same page before we go customer facing. As I said, present all the project related documents. So your operational environment, your statement of work, any deviations from the standard service, any other documents that have been collected, any network diagrams, etc., would be all shown internally here. So once we've gone through all the documentations internally and we've all agreed on the timeline, we then will have our customer kickoff meeting. Okay, with a customer kickoff meeting, Here, we're going to do kind of the same thing that we've done internally, but customer facing. So we're going to introduce the project team and everybody's role within the project, learn the customer assigned team as well. So who we'll be liaising with, make sure that the SDM is aware of the service owner on the customer side, or the technical people within that call know who to speak to, who to escalate things to, and have them discussions with. We then go through all the main documents again. So we go through the SOW, we review it, make sure that the customer is happy with all the tasks within the statement of work. Obviously, it's already signed by the customers to make sure they're aware of their responsibilities, what is expected of them during the project, if they need any sort of virtual machines, anything like that where we can discuss with the customer early on is going to make a big difference than going halfway down the project that they need to start spinning up virtual machines, etc. So we go through the statement of work, review it in depth with the customer, make sure everyone's aware of their roles and responsibilities within that. We have our operational environment. So again, review the operational environment that has been scoped by pre-sales. This again would have already been signed by the customer, so they should be aware of it, but make sure that everybody on that call is aware of it. Operational handbook, so obviously present and document the operational handbook. All your level 3 layer 3 diagrams, security zone diagrams, all of these high level design documents, if there are any, should be provided. Everything, all these documents should also be put into our customer documentation space. Okay, so everybody has access to our docs space and be able to see these documents. There needs to be a discussion around email integration if that was sold as part of the service. So kick them talks off straight away. The earlier we can get through the integration tasks, any tasks where they need to spin up virtual machines again, anything that takes a bit of time is great to talk about in this first meeting to ensure everybody is aware and can start them internal processes off. Customer Q&A, so present that document as well to the customer, plan around it, make sure everyone understands if that document has been filled in. And then we also have the RFC one. So if you're aware of SDP, so our TIOs and SOC engineers, we have our SDP requirements. So there are 2 customer kickoffs, funnily enough, all can be done in the same meeting, one for generic service and one for the SDA and VPN. So within this task, which can be done in the same meeting, this is where we start going straight into our service delivery appliance and our service delivery platform. Again, the sooner we can give this to the customer, the more time we have to make sure everything's set up correctly and we're not rushing around at the end of it. Okay, so we should be giving the SDA image straight to the customer. All the links are here, the images and deployment guides. We need to obviously send them the deployment guides to the customer as well. And then we also need to create and or get all the VPN configuration settings. Okay, so what IKE version we're using, etc. All the secrets, etc. need to be captured as soon as possible. That means on our side that we can start the connection of the VPN on our side, and then the customer can also start that, which means that if there are any troubleshooting issues or time for testing, we're not doing this right at the end of the project. We're being proactive and starting that near the beginning. As I said, all the information you need is in every single one of these tasks. Any links to any documentation or images is also provided in the descriptions here. Okay, so you have the customer kickoff calls with the customer through the project and our SDP and SDA. Do we have any questions on that so far, Rob? Anything in the chat?
We have many questions, but I think we can handle them on the chat for now.
Fantastic. So that is the first set of tasks that we would need to do on a project kickoff. what we are going to do now is just have a quick review, and then we'll take a 5-minute break. So we went through the project document preparation. We have our internal kickoff where we go through the statement of work and all the documents in depth, customer challenges, licenses and work and scope, the timelines and key milestones, plan and prepare that customer kickoff, and then make sure that everyone's aware of their tasks. So from the RACI inside the task. We have that customer kickoff. So we go through the statement of work, the operational environment, operational handbook, collect all diagrams that haven't been collected in the pre-sales phase, go through the customer Q&A, which gives all the sort of high-level information about their data centers and where applications would be, etc. And then we also make sure that we go through all the SDA and SDP configurations that we need early on and hand over the image for the SDA so the customer can start spinning that up, ready to kick off the service. Brilliant. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We will be back at X42 to go on to the next part, which is the customer onboarding activities.
Thank you, Dan.
Then FYI, we see the background, we don't see the slides, yeah.
Is that better, John?
Thank you.
John, can you pick up that last question from Risha, please?
Yep.
Okay, so hopefully everybody is back. Let's get cracking again.
I never left, man.
Nor did I. So we're now going to go on to some of the customer onboarding activities. Again, obviously, we don't have time to go through every single customer onboarding activity in the project. So we'll just go high level over some of the key areas and where to find the information. Okay. So for the build side of things, for TIO and PS, we have tasks assigned to build the solution. Again, we're going to go into Picard and have a look at all of these. Or some of these, should I say. As I said, we don't have time to go through all of them. So we have MSA specific builds. So depending on the vendor, there will be different build tasks here. We're going to concentrate on Netscope today, but this is the same for Zscaler and Prisma. So let's just have a look at a couple of these tasks here. So the first task in a Netscape build is the tenant staging. Again, we have the description of what we need to do. So we need to engage with Netscope and deploy a tenant. And if there's a POC being had beforehand, then the following instruction here needs to be followed to make sure that it is configured to OCD standards rather than the POC standard. So as I said here, if we click these links, we get taken into our SPOC area. So SPOC is for all technical documentation relating to the vendors and the service. We have all when the change related documents, any prerequisites that we need to make sure are done before we start tenant staging. And then for this one, we obviously go into the templates side of things. So making sure the admin configurations and the policy configurations are done to our OCD template here. So for the administrator side, all the different roles, target audience, what permissions they should have. We have the configuration preview, so the privacy notices, what the privacy notice should say. Again, we're standardizing this across all of our customers. It makes it very easy for SOC engineers to work on the platform. Here, add in our IP allow list to lock down the tenant and our baseline policies. Okay, so TIO PS would use this to create, do the tenant staging and create the initial templates. So the assignee would be TIO or PS. Obviously, as we move into in progress, you can use this button here to start the task, and then you'll be able to do review. So let's just go to in progress to show. We can make sure that once we finish the task, we can ask for a review or click it as done. Before we go to review and done, we should be adding our evidence into the comments here. So at the bottom here, add the evidence, or just put a brief summary of what you have done. It means that we can go back and track exactly where we are in the project and make sure that every task is done. Okay, so that is the tenant staging. Once we have done tenant staging, we then have our foundational components. This is where we add all the administrators, the client deployment method. Again, you've got a tick list here to go through and click off once these have been done. And then we have our delivery instruction here. So if we click into the foundational components, we can see we have our administration and rights. Everything should be clicked through. It should be quite easy to navigate. Creation of local administrator accounts. So here's how we add all the admin accounts here, the roles. If we have co-management administration, which is an additional part of the service, obviously make sure that they have that in the contract. It is slightly different in terms of costing and inside the actual contract for SLAs. There's documentation here, how to add that to the global portal. So they'll be able to go into the global portal and actually access.
If you can zoom a bit.
Sorry, is it gone? Yeah. Keeps on refreshing.
Once you open a new window, I think it goes to the
defaults back. Okay, so we have in-depth instructions here on how to complete each one of the tasks. So here, obviously, if we need to bring in our internal IT, here's where we go to add them to the global portal. Okay, so Spock, all the technical instructions, step-by-step instructions from start to finish from the vendor functionality. They're inside of Spock. There is our installation manuals, operation instructions, configuration instructions, and our service activation tasks. Okay, so if you're part of the deployment team, I would suggest you coming in, having a look at this and getting familiar with it all. Again, on every single project, there is a link to the instruction within the task description itself. And again, we have our deliverables of what should be achieved from this task at the bottom. Okay. And then our steering configuration task here is how to build the steering configurations to make sure that we're sending the correct traffic to Netscope. We click in here, and again, here's our section on our steering configuration. So to create a new steering configuration or to edit a default one, here are your two COI, so your configuration instructions here. To create a new one, again, step by step, making sure that every single tenant is configured to the same OCD spec. Obviously, there are going to be slight variations here, depending on the customer, but ideally, this should be the same for every customer as much as we can. So when we go in to look at a policy from a run phase, we know exactly what we're looking for. We have the same naming conventions, steering configurations are set up the same. The customer differences might be like exceptions, etc., depending on what the customer uses. Okay, so again, we go through the TIO or PS would go through this document, ensure it's built to the same spec. And then once they have completed that, we add the evidence into the comments and click the task as done. Okay, so that's where all the information for the build side of it sits. Apologies. SDP onboarding. So part of obviously the service is to monitor all the virtual machines, monitor anything within the tenant that we can, to make sure that we're obviously providing that proactive bit of the service. So this obviously allows the monitoring. We need to make sure this is linked to ServiceNow, so we're getting all the monitoring alerts. And this should be started with a technical build. This shouldn't be left towards the end of the build phase, purely for the fact that you need the time to do troubleshooting. ISS need the time to do the actual configuration of the SDA their side. So the quicker we can start this off, the easier and smoother the transition will be. Obviously, once this is all working, the SDA is working, more devices can be added as and when needed. It just needs to be making sure that the SDA can reach them devices and talk to them devices. So there's several tasks within Picard. So for each step of the way, we have the RFC 1, which will go through the installation of the SDA, so getting them images across and spun up from the customer side, and the VPN setup. So we need all that customer configuration from their side to be able to configure it on our side too. We then verify that we can connect to the SDA and it's alive and it all goes down the tunnel correctly. We then request and execute RFC2, which is basically configuring the SDA to talk within SDP to make sure all the monitoring data comes back. We then can configure devices in SDP and then test them devices to make sure monitoring is working inside SDP and we're getting the correct alerts flow from SDP into ServiceNow. So if we go and have a look at some of these tasks within Picard, you can see here are the general SDP tasks. So let's just have a look at a couple of these. Here. So obviously the first thing to do is commission RFC 1. This is a service ticket to the ISS, our internal service team. And here we're basically, we can click the link here, and I'm not going to go into it now because it'll take me into the service desk portal, but we just fill out all the customer information that they've required there. This basically sets the customer up within SDP. So there is a CMDB entry for the customer and an entry and password state, so engineers can add the passwords and device information in there. So again, that should be quite quick. We can do that near enough straight after the customer kickoff. We put an estimated amount of devices, which we should be able to get from the statement of work. So that should be done near enough straight after the project kickoff. Install of the SDA. So again, we should have hopefully been proactive and sent the SDA images across in that customer kickoff meeting. And then the idea of TIO here is to assist the customer in setting up that VM. So there is a deployment guide here on our SharePoint page. I can show you this one very quickly. There's the whole deployment guide, which is customer facing here, to go through all the networking requirements, how to install it on specific hypervisors. This should already be gone through in the kickoff, because we should know what image we're going to be sending over to the customer, and then the installation of that device. So we can guide the customer through that part as well, and then we can also help the customer set up the VPN. Okay, so again, you get your instructions here, how to do the SDP configuration, the templates, the information that we need. So again, the SDP VPN, firewall positions for the SOC onboarder, what we should be looking at, how to actually set it up, how to troubleshoot, all within all of our documentation. All the links again are provided in the Picard task. Okay, so just make sure you follow that. There's obviously the configuration template. So here's where you put the customer information in, their IPs, etc., and it'll actually create the all the commands and policies that you need to implement on our firewall on SDP side. So it's very quick and easy made for us. Okay, so again, make sure with the VPN, we've guided the customer through the setup on the VPN on their side, and then we set up the VPN on the SDP side. Then making sure that we can connect to the SDA itself, which is the next task. Verifying that connectivity. If we can't, we have a troubleshooting guide, again in SharePoint, which you can go in and have a look here. Okay, so we should make sure that we have the connectivity over the VPN. So we should be able to SSH to the service delivery appliance, and then we can go into moving into RFC2. So again, we request the RFC2 from DevOps. Here, another link to our service portal. Fill that out, and then our internal team will execute RFC2. So they'll verify that the SDA is up and running, and that it's all configured correctly. And then that will allow us to do device configuration. So within SDP, there's a guide here on how to add devices to our CMDB. So we can go in, add all of our devices, make sure, one, they're reachable over the VPN. So through most of the time in MSA, it's through SSH. We don't usually have a GUI for the virtual machines. And then also the monitoring. So making sure in our monitoring tool that all the monitoring data is coming into Zabbix. So that can all be done here. Make sure again to test the alert flow, make sure that from SDP itself into our ServiceNow instance that we are getting monitoring alerts. Okay, that is done by serial number. So the serial number in our CMDB in SDP needs to match the one in ServiceNow. Currently, the source of truth for ServiceNow items is in Salesforce. So make sure that the Salesforce CIs have the correct name and the correct serial numbers. and there's usually each sort of local country has a different process of who owns the Salesforce instance. A lot of it is to do with the account manager, but it may be different in your country, so make sure you are aware of that process. Okay, so make sure they put the serial numbers in, and then you can do the test of the alert flow to make sure that we can connect or we get the alerts coming out of SDP. This is good to do on a brand new device, okay, before you start configuring it for a pilot users. So it allows you to maybe lose the connectivity very quickly to test them alert flows. Okay, so if it's not being used in the environment and it's only just been spun up, that's the ideal time to test that device so it's not in production. Okay, so that is our device configuration in SDP and our SDA configuration. With our tenants as well, if you're aware, most of the tenants are cloud-based for our MSA service. So Zscaler, Netscape, and Prisma all have a externally facing FQDN or URL. So we need to make sure that that is allowed in SDP as well. Okay, so we go to the site in SDP on our browser, and we should be able to connect to that. If not, it's a request into our ISS team again to make sure that we are allowing the URL through our SDP infrastructure. It's obviously very sort of locked down, very secure, so we just need to make sure that we can get access to that. Once we have access, obviously it is global, so anybody can access that tenant URL if they get hold of it. So what we need to do is, if applicable, we need to be able to lock that tenant down to certain management IPs. So again, we have how to lock down the customer tenant, opening up our spot pages, and where to go to add the IPs for SDP. Okay, so again, each item, if you work through the Picard, each task, once you load it up, you should be able to go in and see each task that needs to be done. And if there's any configuration that needs doing, there should be links to these into our Spock environment. Brilliant. So that is our SDP onboarding. Make sure we have, again, there's your order of tasks at the bottom. So customer access, we do have our, we have two tasks here. We have our create customer portal users, which our SDM will be in charge of creating the administrator, and then they should have the customer administrator should have the rights to create other users within our portal. And then we also now have a customer Okta instance for OCD where they can access their tenant as well. So if we have read-only administrators or our co-management piece, then here we can configure that so they have access. So we don't rely on the customer's IDP or identity provider, sorry, for the things like Okta or Azure for customers to access their own tenant. So again, in here, there will be our two tasks to create the customer users and customer administrators. So if we load them very quickly, as I said, the customer portal. Here we have the SDM to request the admins. There's the customer portal guide for the customer, and you can see in the RACI, the SDM is in charge of this chart, responsible of this task. Customer administrators, so again, not applicable if the customer's not purchased co-management. Here's your Spock instruction. So if you need to see how to configure from TIO or PS perspective, here is how to do. Again, you need to raise tickets to our IT services. Every step of the way should make it very easy to make a build. Okay, so that's all within the customer administrator tasks. You can see there what the Spot page looks like for reference after this trainer session. So we also have our OCD threat intelligence. So here, for every single service, we offer our threat intel. It's part of our one of our unique offerings. We attach this for free inside every service that we can. Basically, the OCD data lake feed should be configured with inside the tenant. Okay, so again, you have your customer onboarding task, your prerequisites, you're creating the API token, all the instructions, and that should take you to Spock again, where it will take you through each one of the tasks. So just to show threat integration. Here's the Spock page, and again, step by step, creating an API token, what scope of the token is, so what read-write access that token would need, and then how to add it onto the threat intel within our Orange Cyber Defense portal. How to check to make sure everything is updated correctly. Okay, inside of Blacklake for TIO and SOC onboarders, once you go into Blacklake to create the API tokens, there is documentation there as well on how to configure it for each vendor. Okay, so there are two places for the documentation. I would always go and look at the Blacklake one first. That is usually the one that is kept up to date, and then this is updated from that document itself. There's also a customer contact form. So here we should be recording our co-management admins, our portal admins, our change approvers, and our escalation contracts. So there is an Excel spreadsheet to fill in, and again, the SDM will take this task, fill this out, and then be able to implement the customer portal administrators, pass on the information to the build team to do the customer administrators. We can set up the change approvers part in ServiceNow from this, and obviously the escalation contacts, which will live in Docs. Again, as with everything here, we have tasks for these in Picard. Here with the link to the actual contact form itself. Okay, so nice and easy. Follow the task in Picard, follow the links, and you will get the information that you need or the documents that you need to fill everything in. And the last thing is the operational handbook. So here is where we keep obviously all the customer information. This is filled out by the SDM in conjunction with the customer. It contains customer specifics for the contract and the service delivery part. And that is also stored in Docs. Okay, so within our Docs environment, you should be able to come in here and see all the documentation. Okay, so that all lives within Docs. One thing to note that isn't in a specific Picard task itself, but this should have already been discussed early on, is our change catalog. Okay, so we do offer co-management for our customers, and that means they can configure certain changes themselves. We don't allow them to do anything that will break the platform or change the logic within the platform, but it does allow them to do them sort of 90% of day-to-day tasks or day-to-day changes, like adding URLs to certain policies without the need of Orange Cyber Defense. It means that we're not getting hundreds of change requests just to add certain URLs. It means that we don't, obviously some of these would also need to be quicker than what we can implement on our SLAs. So it allows the customers to actually take charge of certain changes within their environment, as you can see by the co-managed piece on the right-hand side with the yeses, with the asterisks, which just means that there's certain bits they can do, crosses and ticks, so what they can and can't do. And then for each different type of change, whether it's can be done standard, normal, or emergency. It does need a co-management contract. The contract is different for co-management. So this should be identified early on in the pre-sales phase before it's handed over. But there may be a conversation to have around the co-managed piece within the build side of things. It's not set in stone. It is quite flexible. Okay, so if we have technical customers who want a little bit more sort of freedom, we can allow that, but we need to have that conversation with the customer first before we allow that. Okay, to make sure that they understand the risks and why we sort of try and keep certain changes within Orange Cyber Defense. So moving on to the delivery model, I'm going to pass over to Zoe, who's going to go through the delivery model and points to consider when working with OB.
Perfect, thanks, Dan. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
All good, perfect. So we can move on to the next slide, please, Dan. So those who don't know me, I'm the head of innovation for the global SOC. I've got overall ownership of ensuring that we've got a standardized operational model across all of our services, and that's sort of why I'm here today to explain to you what we've done for MSA. So the delivery model for MSA might be a little bit different to what you know today for our other services. So in terms of what we've done, we've got one standard delivery model for MSA from the global SOC, which essentially consists of both EU and non-EU engineers in one ticketing queue. So it essentially is one virtual delivery team, and this gives us the ability to leverage skills and expertise from all over the SOC. So we don't just deliver solely from one sort of country hub. So when you're onboarding, when you're filling in things in Picard, it'll ask you for delivery teams. Here it's the global SOC MSA team. We can deliver sort of EU-centric services if the customer has specific data security controls. However, this is a bit more expensive and is like priced accordingly in the calculator. For the direct market, the customers will be expected to interact with the service sort of via our global customer portal. So this is for ticket creation, ticket updates, change approvals, reporting, or they can phone the service desk for sort of P1s, emergency changes. It is important to note that we don't provide end user support. So we rely on customer designated admins or a customer's IT team to sort of interact with us. We can support e-bonding between some customer ITSM tools. So that's our ServiceNow instance, the OCD ServiceNow, directly to the customer's ITSM tool. This does need to be scoped slightly differently. There's a specific landing page for this. There's packages that they need to buy. There's extra onboarding steps that they do. But if you've got customers that are, large customers that work in their ITSM tools, then this is definitely the way to go. And it's like our standard for customers that are looking for more of that e-bonding. We do have obviously the customer security advisor. They're responsible for delivering the proactive elements of the service. They support the SDM in the service reviews. And what the security advisor will be based in one of the knowledge hubs. And usually this is as close to the customer as possible. So thinking about that local proximity. And then lastly, we obviously must be selling the SDM alongside the service. This is, again, usually positioned in country to create that proximity. We do have some global operations CSMs, lots of different terms, lots of different acronyms. So if you don't have quite the SDMs in country or the skill sets to deliver the service alongside the operational teams, then you can engage the CSMs. This is a team under Tom de Callaway and is managed by Jan Corbeils. So if you need sort of an OCD governance role, if you don't have anyone suitable, then please engage and we can have a look at supporting you with this activity. And next slide, please. So this is a visual representation of the hubs that are currently involved in delivering the MSA service. So as I mentioned, we've obviously got our OCD service desk. They are delivering level 1 skills and expertise. They are not a catch and dispatch entity. They are resolving tickets. They've got autonomy. They've got their own KPIs, their own SLAs that they work to. So they are still a technical team. If the service desk obviously need to leverage the sort of level 2, level 3 teams, then that's where our global SOC hubs come in. So not every hub delivers every technology. We've got specialist expertise based in specific countries, creating sort of little centers of excellence around the different technologies. The standard model, as I mentioned, is global. So we've got our global service desk and we've got our global SOC. All service desks have one ticketing queue. The SOC have one ticketing queue, allows all of our engineers to work all across our customers to make sure that, you know, we're hitting our SLAs and giving the customer the right sort of deliverables as per the contract. And next slide, please, Dan. So as I mentioned in the first slide, we have one standard delivery model. It's the thing that differs is the customer journey. So essentially in the direct market, you've got the portal and potentially integration with ITSM tool, and with the OB market, obviously we've got Orange Business Service Desk that sits between us and the customer. We must be e-bonding the OB service desk with our ServiceNow instance, and that's a discussion that happens right early on in the pre-sales phase to ensure we've got that exact customer journey mapped out. So that is, again, same delivery model, same service desk, same SOC hubs, same virtual teams, for example. And then we've got 2 governance roles. So whereas in the direct market, you just have your SDM, in the indirect market, you've got the OB CSM that overarches the whole customer relationship. And I'll deep dive into that in a little bit. Next slide, Dan. So just a few different points of note as well around working with OB. As I think Dan's previously mentioned already, if you're selling multiple security services, then we often are pushing on the pre-sales teams, the account managers, to position an OCD security manager. This role is the single voice that owns the security scope and the communications towards the customer. So where you'd have a security advisor being the voice to the customer, if you've got a single service, what we do when you've got multiple security services is bring in that security manager to simplify the communications towards the customer and have those high level conversations with the customer. The security advisors can still be presenting some of the value to the service to the customer if they're going into those deep dive workshops where they really need to look at the security posture management activities, for example. But overall, the security manager can govern and own that scope. I think it was a question before to do with the different handbooks, etc. But we will ensure that the details of the OCD handbook is consumed in the Orange Business COG. So that's the Customer Operations Guide. We don't want to be presenting 2 different documents for the customer. We want one single document that can go to the customer, that the customer can view all the different elements of the service. So again, during onboarding, we will make sure that the SDM on the OCD side is ensuring that all the handbook details are in the COG. We've mentioned about OB and the OCD ITSM e-bonding. Another key point is around that direct contact with the customer. Now, whilst all auditing and ticket updates and everything obviously have to go through the different service desks. This is obviously going to be automated through the e-bonding. When it comes to troubleshooting calls with the customer, you know, the value of the service, we will have our OCD engineers directly interfacing with the customer. Otherwise, things get lost in translation, and obviously it can cause some issues. Around the security advisor, obviously they're presenting the value of the service unless you've got multiple services. And then the CSM obviously owns the overall service governance when there's through the OB channel as well. If you go on to the next slide, Dan, I've got a little bit more information on the differences. Okay, so perfect. So in terms of the governance roles, then I just wanted to highlight a few different sort of activities. So for the direct market, as mentioned, we require an SDM, and the SDM is responsible for ensuring pretty much that the services are delivered according to the contract that we've sold. If we take a little bit of a look at the responsibilities, so this could be things like the monthly service review meetings. It could be the action tracking, making sure that there's meeting notes, ensuring that items are followed up with, making sure the account manager's looped into any contractual things that need picking up or any commercial upsells, etc. Documentation, so obviously maintaining the customer documentation, make sure that the contacts are correct, the processes, escalations, operational handbook. They very much work alongside the operational teams to make sure that we're delivering to our contractual obligations. So looking at things like SLAs in those reviews. Customer satisfaction. So they obviously must be monitoring sort of customer feedback, different satisfaction metrics, responsible for the overall service customer satisfaction, let's say. They're the ones that can also engage in, activating a SIP. If we ever got to that stage where the customer wasn't happy with the service, or, we should be noticing some trends of before they're really unhappy, picking out some of the things, identifying those gaps, and engaging with the SOC managers, with the security advisors to, get in front of any issues that may occur. And then the last piece is obviously to do with the customer reports. So they're responsible for sort of uploading the customer reports to the Fusion Central portal, and making sure that all the customer stakeholders have access to those where needed. And then next slide, next part. So this obviously differs slightly when we're coming through the OB channel. So as I mentioned, the OB CSM will take the overall service governance. However, the SDM will still govern the security services. They're still the experts on the security services. They have the proximity to the SOC teams, the understandings of how the services run, etc., etc. So when this happens, what the CSM then puts on top of the SDM or adds in combination with is that single point of contact for the customer. So they will act as the main interface for customer inquiries. If they need to know who they're engaging when the customer's coming to us, they are that single point of contact. They will own the overall relationship with the customer, bridging, the security services, the network services, and they will act as a voice of the customer internally. So if the customer's obviously engaging with them, the OB CSM needs to make sure that they're engaging with the key stakeholders across the security services and the network services. Obviously, they're responsible for the documentation consolidation. So as mentioned, we don't want to be giving the customer two different handbooks, for example. We need to act as one orange towards the customer. And then lastly, they're responsible for sort of scheduling the customer facing meetings, making sure that, we're presenting ourselves as one orange, looking at our content. We really want to make sure that we're seen as one to the customer. So they're pinnacle, absolutely pivotal to ensuring that piece. So yeah, that's just a little bit about those two roles and the delivery model. If anyone's got any questions in the chat, I can answer them as a text reply or answer them at the end of the meeting. But that is all from me.
No current questions, Zoe.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Zoe. So we are going to take another quick 5-minute break to let you absorb all of that information from that part of the session. So if we could be back at 26 minutes past. Thank you. Brilliant. Hopefully we are all back. And we shall carry on with the next part. So the next part is the handover to operations. So the build to run processes, a bit about Spock and docs, customer knowledge share documents, sort of day-to-day activities, and a bit more on the security advisor, security manager role. So build to run, we have a go live checklist, okay, where we go in and basically sign off all of the tasks. There's a lot of tasks in there. I've put the main tasks here on the slide in front of you. So obviously we go in to make sure the tenant's configured. We've made sure that all the reporting is configured and scheduled to go out when needs be from ServiceNow and from within the tenant itself. We've checked that SDP alerts are configured. Email notifications are all configured and working. We've all got access and all the accounts are verified. So we make sure that every SOC engineer can access the tenant and the virtual machines that are needed. All documents are updated in docs. The TDM and SDM are assigned, which hopefully is a quick tick off as we should have had them in from the beginning. SLA verification, make sure all SLAs are working inside tickets for our P1, P2, P3s. We've removed the onboarder accounts if there's no further work to be carried out. And our email escalation path is working and is documented as well. So that is from us to the customer and the customer to us. If we tick all the boxes on the go live checklist, we can go live with the customer and start billing. So if we go back to our Spock page, or sorry, our Picard page here, we have our go live checklist review. So within here, we have our go live checklist for all of our services. So within here, you see managed secure access. We can, again, nice and easily click in, be redirected to the form. And within here, you have all the tasks. As I said, there are quite a few tasks. I've summarized them on that previous slide. And then we have the onboarding resource that has checklists and the hub manager that approves. So the hub manager, because this is a global service, the hub manager is where the TDM is assigned. So if the TDM is assigned in the UK, for example, or security advisor, should I say, sorry, externally, then the hub manager will be the UK hub manager. Okay, same for Sweden, same for Cairo. So the hub manager is in charge of the TDM, the customer where the TDM sits, because obviously the customers could be global. Okay, so the onboarding resource double checks, and remember this is a checklist. This isn't to actually configure. This is that sort of 4 to 6 eyes approach in this way, that we've made sure that all tasks are completed, and then they're dated as well. So all of these are tasks in Picard. This again is just to do that double check. Here, if there's any service exceptions for go live, then we record them here, approve it, and the approval dates. So sometimes this is used when we do a phased approach. Sometimes we have a long phase of rolling out users where it becomes impossible for TIO or PS to support that amount of users onboarded. If we have a customer with 10,000 users, for example, we're going to need to go live once we've got quite a few, like 5,000 of them users, or probably a few less than that. We need to start supporting them. It's impossible for that one team to support them. So we can put in here, if there's a pilot approach, the 2,000 users or 5,000 users are live and require support while the others are onboarded. This may also be used when there's a functionality rollout. So because there are quite a few different functionalities within the MSA service, we may have one functionality go live, like the internet access side of things, but the private access is still being worked on by the build team. So we can do phased approaches. Obviously, that would require separate checklists to make sure that we have completed each part for that stage as well. So we can record them in here. Okay, once all this is ticked off, we can send that go live email internally, start billing the customer, and we have that go live with the customer as well. Okay, So we obviously want the service to go live as quick as possible. So we try and get through all them Picard tasks as quick as possible here. So that is where you can find the go live checklist. It's going to close. Fantastic. Spock, as I said before, Spock is all of our technical information for our vendors. So anything that isn't got customer sensitive data in would sit within Spock. So in here, engineers can use this during the run phase to make sure that we've collected the minimum data set. We have troubleshooting playbooks to go through and for issues that are common or regularly occurring. So we have troubleshooting playbooks there that engineers can follow to make sure that all information is captured, and troubleshooting techniques. Vendor tools, so if there's any external vendor tools that can be used, they sit in there so everyone is aware and how to use them. We have technical deep dives on certain parts of each functionality as sort of quick reminders from the training. We also have how to raise support tickets and the process to do that, and escalations to the vendor themselves. So again, if we just go into Spock here, I've just gone into the Netscope page. We have all like the vendor contact information, service contacts, how to register for the partner accounts, so anything vendor related sits in here. As I said, we have our data collection and troubleshooting. So we have our minimum data set. So here's the helpful questions here on what the information that we need from the customer. If we need client logs or PCAPs, we have links here on how to collect them logs as well. Okay, so it guides engineers through each step of the way to get the data that they needed. Then we have obviously the troubleshooting playbook, where if we go and have a look for your own application issues, for example, it will tell you how to collect the data, what to be checking within the tenant, capturing the data and how to do that, and troubleshooting, so analyzing that data as well. So engineers should be able to follow these and then reach out if there are any further questions into our tech team channels. So all of that information sits within Spock. And then we also, as I said, we have our sort of extra information in here, so technical deep dives. So if a engineer just wanted to reconfirm how the client selects its closest gateway, there's each way that the client does that in here and how to check for it, and some high-level diagrams on how to do that. So all vendor information sits within Spock. I really suggest if you're a technical engineer to come in and have a look at this. It's constantly being updated. It's our sort of knowledge base currently for all of that technical information. We also have our docs space. So this is all customer related info for the service. So it includes all the documents that we filled out from the pre-sales and project phases. So things like your operational handbook, statement of works can be put in here. Any sort of documentation related to the customer will sit in our doc space. Any specific customer config that is different from our sort of standard would sit in the doc space as well. So we can write, so if any engineer is troubleshooting, they can just come in here and make sure there's no sort of anomalies from our regular standard offering. Any kind of bespoke templates. So if we have certain change requests that need certain actions, maybe that they've requested that it always has to be a temporary rule or a test group in that before it goes out into all users, that's where they would sit here, and sort of any sort of, if there's issues that keep coming up and we need to do some additional checks before doing a certain type of change, that would also sit in here as well. We also have our HLD and low-level, so our high-level design and low-level design documentation in here. Our network diagrams are all put into here. So anything about the customer should sit within our docs customer documentation space. On top of this as well, we should be recording all of our meeting minutes. So if anybody needs to find something out about a project or during its build phase or run phase, all meeting minutes should be recorded here. The big ones here are the build and project meeting minutes. So the PM should be coming in and just putting in brief meeting minutes of what happened during that session. So if we ever need to come back to something that we've said to the customer, or the customer's asked us, that it's all recorded in here, and also for our TDMs as well. So if you're a technical delivery manager or security advisor, you should also be coming in here and putting your meeting minutes from your service governance meetings. This allows for another TDM to take over, for example. We do have primaries and secondaries. So if you were on holiday or there's an unforeseen circumstance where you are off work for a longer period of time, we can come in here, see what has already been discussed with the customer, what sort of activities they're focusing on now, and be able to then assign another TDM or raise the secondary to a primary to allow that continuation without having to go to the customer and finding out from the customer what has been happening in their meetings. So it is the more information you can put in here, the better about the customer. Yeah. So the standard thing for a engineer when they're working on a customer is to come in here and ensure that there's no specifics that need to be aware of before troubleshooting or applying changes or going into a meeting with a customer. So all of that should be recorded in our docs area. I have shown you this. This is the demo space here. So you have like spaces for all your network diagrams, HLD, their change catalog if it's different from the standard, the go live checklist signed off, all here. SOC meetings, so all the MSA meetings should sit in here, the task trackers, the monthly and quarterlies, meeting minutes of what has been discussed in here. So everything from the customer related aspect of things should be sitting within docs. There's also a customer knowledge share. So just before we go live with the customer, TIO and TIO should be running a customer knowledge share session. So they are, even if PS have done the initial build, the quality control and the service activation piece was done by our TIO team. So they should be running this customer knowledge share. This is an internal meeting, okay, with the SOC engineers that will be working on that customer. And it's basically a full technical walkthrough of the solution. Okay, so they should be filling in a customer knowledge share document, which gives the sort of customer overview, where their devices are sort of located, host names, IPs, anything in here, all the diagrams and topology from the customer that is needed for that service. So we don't need a full network diagram of all their internal workings, more of what the functionality for the vendor. So for, in instance, Netscope, all the publishers, how they connect, where the publishers are located, should be in this diagram. Any customer specific info, so should be in this document as well. So anything that the customers asked for, the critical services that they use the solution for, there may be certain applications that is required for the business to run. So anything like that should be recorded in here as well. So if so we should know, as from an engineer standpoint, if application A goes down, that's P1 the customer side, and we need to act on that ASAP. Okay, so anything like that should sit in here. Any challenges during that build phase, anything that the customer brought up or you saw as a challenge, should be also recorded in here. Anything that's in and out of scope, okay, so anything that falls outside of the normal scope, or maybe we've added something extra into the scope for the customer, as long as it's all been agreed beforehand, needs to be talked about as well during this customer knowledge share. And then if there's any outstanding work, so if there is a phased rollout or phased approach to the functionalities on offer, that should also be put in here so engineers are aware what is in and out of scope during for that part of the service, and estimated dates of when that work is going to be completed. So very, very quickly, obviously we've talked about these roles throughout, so I'm just going to go over them again really quickly. Security advisor, which is known as externally or internally as TDM, is a subject matter expert on the SSE or SASE platform for that customer, and they are in charge of their monthly security governance and quarterly security review meetings. They are the technical touch point with the customer. So yeah, they should be an extension to the business, the customer's business, from an Orange Cyber Defense perspective. Technical leads, basically the sort of subject matter expert for their chosen vendor, and they sort of also incubate them critical and VIP customer takeovers. If there are any escalations from a customer, the tech lead will step in, and also there to provide assistance to all engineers who are working on the service. Level 3 support, I think we all know what level 3s do, so the escalation point before it goes to vendor. Please utilize all internal knowledge before we go to our vendors. We do have a lot of expertise within Orange Cyber Defense on our SSE offerings. Engineering's team will do service design and release validation, so they test all new features, run part of the beta tests, do security testing and vulnerability assessments, and help with the service roadmap. They work very, very closely with the technical leads, and then the security manager is literally an extension to a security advisor if they have multiple services. So they have one customer-facing security manager, and then there'll be a technical delivery manager per service in the background feeding that information to the security manager. So as I said, we do have a monthly security governance meeting, quarterly security review, and annual compliance audit. These are one of our sort of unique selling points within MSA, and it's that proactive security posture management. So every month we give a security governance meeting of what we're seeing in the platform, any risks and threats that have been identified. We raise to the customer, have discussions around their strategies on new and emerging threats, for instance, AI, or streaming media, things like that would all be covered in the monthly security. Quarterly security review is a basically full configuration audit on their environment, and any recommendations to work over the next 3 months. So it's a full configuration audit, going through all the policies, tidy up of policies, tidy up of URL lists, any administration settings that need to be changed, or things that have been changed over the last 3 months, especially from a co-management piece, to make sure that we're improving their security posture. So that's one every quarterly, and the tasks that come out on that are worked on the next 3 months before the next security review. And then our annual compliance audit, if they need to go to certain requirements, so things like PCI, GDPR, any of them kind of certifications, we can run a compliance audit for them. So we take certain criteria from that regulatory certificate and do an assessment on that. So it may be to make sure the admins are locked down. There's no admin older than 3 months from the month that they've left, etc. So all of that is covered under an annual compliance audit. What's that reporting look like? Here's the monthly service report here. So we go through a report overview, risky applications, usage trends, any threat and risk insights to users, to applications, and they get this every single month that we go through in a 1-hour meeting with the customer. The SDMs who are part of MSA have probably already been involved in some of these, and so probably are already aware. And then our quarterly security review, again, is that configuration audit. So you can see here the threat policy management, user experience management, any kind of functionality they have, we do a full configuration audit for them. All of the sample reports for each of the vendor can be found on our MSA microsite as well, which should be in the chat for you. So what to learn afterwards? We do have technical tracks. for all of our engineers. So this is split out into the fundamentals for each vendor. We then have basic, which covers configuration and troubleshooting. We have an advanced configuration and troubleshooting. We then have our security advisor and security manager piece, which we're calling Security Advisor's Methodology Manual. So we go into more of the thought leadership and thinking about how to secure a customer's environment. It's slightly different to being just a normal technical engineer. And then we have our deployment side of things as well. So for our TIO and PS, how to deploy the vendor, so anything that covers in the build phase that isn't done in a run phase environment, setting up the users or the customer's identity provider, etc., is covered in the deployment piece. So which track is for you? You can see here which is required and which is optional for each level of engineer. And obviously, as you work up and want to do more, you are more than welcome to continue through these as well. These are run by usually by the tech leads. If you do want some training, please reach out to your line manager and then they can request the training. I've just recently run one for engineers in India for Netscope. And I know the tech lead for Zscaler, has also done one for Global SOC recently as well. So feel free to reach out and we can organize some training for you. Last but not least, all the pages that I have gone through today are on this slide here. So you have this slide deck released to you. You'll be able to go through all these links for anything that we've discussed here today. I'm now going to hand over to John, who's going to show us a cool new feature. Let's put it that way.
Thanks, Dan, and congratulations for all of you for staying till that point of the training. Well done, everyone. Let's talk now AI agents. Yeah. So navigating through all the documentation and knowing which information is included in which documents needs time, and this is where the digital AI assistance for MSA can help. We're currently working on the first product AI agent, which is built to accelerate the day-to-day work of sales, pre-sales, and delivery teams. It is different from any generic AI agent that you have been using because it is purpose-built for MSA. It runs on top of the microsite and all the documentation which it includes, and uses the different documents, spreadsheets, presentations, blogs, analyst reports as its knowledge base. MSA AI agent is currently under training and will be live soon. But until this happens, let's have a sneak peek of what it can provide. So let's say you have pre-sales are working on a new opportunity and they would like to know how to price MSA. As any AI agent, they will start with the prompt or the question. So here, I want to generate pricing for an MSA customer, guide me. The agent will go and check the different information in its knowledge base and will provide them with the 10 steps that needs to be followed. It will provide as well the location from where it got the different information, as well as where to find the pricing calculator. And most importantly, it will reference all the documents that it used to generate the answer. So in this case, it relied on 2 SharePoint pages. As you always hear, AI can suffer from, can do mistakes, can suffer from hallucinations. So always check the references before you base any important decision from those outputs. What else can MSA AI agent help you in? Can help you to answer questions related to MSA product features and split of responsibilities. So for example, does MSA cover end user support, which Zoe did highlight clearly that it is not part of the service. You can use the AI agent as well to provide you with some market trends and figures. This is useful for sales, useful for people working on marketing. It can explain as well generic concepts. What is zero trust, for instance? What is AI security? What is SASE? And it can basically help pre-sales as well accelerate their pricing. They can provide them, the AI agent, with a code from a vendor and ask it to go and check whether those SKUs are supported as part of the service. As I said, it's not released yet. Stay tuned. You will get notified once it's released. What if you have questions? Who can help? Your primary points of contact are the tech leads and the engineering teams, as Dan mentioned. For Palo Alto, the tech lead is Alexander Thor, and the engineering are Rami and Michelle. For Zscaler, the tech lead is Khaled Adel, and the engineering are Amr and Rana. Eric Giron is the tech lead for Fortinet, and Benoit is the engineering point of contact. Dan Gribble, who was our host, the main host for today's session, is the tech lead for Netscope, and supported by Antonin and Ahmed from engineering. Dan plays two roles in the MSA service. He is the tech lead for Netscope, and at the same time, he is the overall tech lead to ensure consistency across all vendors, to ensure we remain both vendor agnostic and consistent across our service delivery with the different vendors. End-to-end ownership of the service sits with Henrik Einetoft. Rob Peters is the SASE lead architect. He supports sales and pre-sales in opening conversations with customers and in organizing business objective workshops. And finally, you can get back to me if you need any support from a product point of view, or if you have a suggestion to improve the value that we deliver back to our customers. I take this opportunity to remind you of the other sessions in the enablement program. We have completed today the first round in the enablement track, which was run over the 3 weeks. Starting from next week, we will start the second round of enablement session. We will rerun the 3 tracks, the sales, the pre-sales, and the delivery tracks over the coming 3 weeks. The sessions will be run on Mondays, and we will be running them in the afternoon to allow our colleagues in the US to be there. If you believe those sessions will be beneficial for one of your colleagues, please feel free to forward the invites to them. We look forward to seeing you in the sales track on Monday, the 6th of October.
John, oh, sorry.
Yep.
There's just one quick question on the AI agent. Do we have an AI agent for tech support as well?
I know that there's something that has been worked on, but maybe Zoe, do you have more up-to-date information?
Yeah, I can. We are working on different aspects of AI, Ahmed. We're looking at AI within ServiceNow. We are also looking at utilizing an agent similar to this, but looking at connecting it with documentation like Spock for our vendors, etc., customer docs. So it's a work in progress. We're currently investigating how that connectivity could look like. But the idea is, yes, to definitely have AI to assist in operational tasks. Obviously, we've got a POC running for the things like the incident reports, the RCAs, the ticket summarizations. But next step will be really looking at technical playbooks, how to resolve incidents quicker, etc. So I'll keep you posted on that.
Thanks, Zoe. And as I said at the beginning, please take a minute to complete the evaluation of today's training. It helps us to keep on delivering quality and useful content for you. Either snap the QR code or use the link that Rob will shortly paste in the chat. If you still have any unanswered question, feel free to unmute your mic or simply put them in the chat and we will answer them. Thank you for your attendance today, and we look forward for seeing you in the upcoming ones. We will stay here for a few minutes if you have any questions.
There's no further questions in the chat, so if anyone has any remarks, feel free to speak up right now.
The feedback only takes 2 minutes. Yep.
Yes.
Question?
Yes. quick one here. When we talk about the support models, level 0, 1, 3, and so on. So for the indirect customers, we know that OB Service Desk is the contact center for the customers, while level 1, 2, and 3 should be on the OCD side. So when we say level 0, is it OB Service Desk or OCD one?
Zoe, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, I guess it depends at what point we would talk about level 0. Traditionally, yes, OB Service Desk is level 0. If we have e-bonding, it's very, very light touch. It's pretty much as making sure that the ticket's redirected to our service now. So if the customer on the OB side knows what service is impacted, ideally that flow should come straight to OCD straight away and then go to our service desk, as you know it today, Sweden or Mauritius. So we don't have level 1 on the OB side, if that's what you're asking. It is purely catch and dispatch, if anything.
Yeah, but OB Service Desk is a component sold to the customer, right?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it's a sellable point. Yeah, go Rob.
Yeah, so indeed the OB Service Desk is part of the overall offering, and they are the first one to respond to any questions. So very often what you see with OB is that they add more services to it, for example, as day 1 or other topics. So the initial one is the OB Service Desk, and from there it gets routed towards the right solver groups. This is already included into the service when OB costs is in. So this is part of it. That's correct.
Okay, clear. So just to confirm my understanding, that means that for all indirect customers, level 0 or the service desk will remain OB teams, right?
That is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Rob, Zoe, John.
I have another question. It's a bit specific, but let's say we have a MSA project with a customer where we're implementing first IPsec gateways, and so this is firewall to mount all the IPsec from the customer. And in the second pass, we are implementing SSE service with Zscaler and so on. There is the SDA VPN. And I'm just asking myself something because basically the third-party IPsec gateway is coming first. And so I'm wondering if for the SDA SDP, normally this is a task for the SOC onboarder. So the firewall, it should be onboarded on SDA SDP, and there should be monitoring implementing for it. And as it's coming first, is it not the responsibility of the PS team that implement the firewalls to do it first and then capitalize and reuse it for the Zscaler clients or equipments to monitor? I guess.
So depending, so exactly. So depending on whether it's accessible. So if you cannot, you only need one SDA within a customer environment as long as it can access everything that it needs to access. So if you've got managed firewall, the questions that we should be asking in the pre-sales phase is, can that SDA actually also reach the other components of an additional service you're bringing in? If it's a completely different location and there's no connectivity between X location and Y location, then you may need to deploy another SDA, and then you go through the full onboarding. But you can leverage an SDA if it's already deployed within an existing service. That just, it's a bit of a technical design question that needs to be thought about. And that's why pre-sales really need to understand with the customer access, connectivity, routing, etc., to make sure it's possible. I do also think there's an element of load as well, that an SDA can do only a certain amount of load, so that will just need to be double checked as well, whether it can do everything. But yeah, it's something that can be leveraged in an existing service for MSA if the right boxes are ticked.
So I'm correct to assume that we should